Welcome to the 9 to 5 Solution, where we are a voice for business owners and for those thinking about launching a business. Now here is your host, Terrell Danzy.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the 9 to 5 Solution with me, your host, Terrell Danzy. And I'm sitting here in the studio with Mr. Travis D. Hughes, the commercial real estate mogul here in Atlanta. How you doing, Mr. Hughes?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Glad you could come and sit in the studio with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm excited about this show because I'm actually pretty impressed with your resume. I took a look at your resume, bio, and just kind of impressed. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I appreciate it. Yeah. I live in Atlanta now,
okay.
And I have been for a number of years,
okay.
Along with my wife and our, as I say, 1.8 children, because she's
1.8.
due. Yeah, she's
okay.
due in November.
Okay.
But
congrats.
yeah, thank you so much. I'm originally from Houston.
Okay.
And made my way here. I am a commercial real estate lawyer and a commercial real estate broker, and I also am the owner and the founder of an online commercial real estate multimedia platform. And that platform is called the Hughes Institute of Real Estate.
Okay. And you also sit on some boards too. I mean, I seen that too. So you got a lot going on.
I do, yeah. My schedule's pretty busy. I am on the board of counselors of the Carter Center.
Okay.
That is President Jimmy Carter's, along with his wife, Rosalind, non-governmental organization dedicated toward eradicating poverty around the world, with a particular focus on Africa and South America. And they also, as they like to say, wage peace around the world.
Okay.
So they send their delegates out to help foster relationships and do whatever's possible in order to help create peace accords.
Nice. So,
and that's one of the organizations.
right.
I'm also on the board of directors of a wonderful nonprofit organization called Nana Grants.
Okay.
That's NANA. And that organization is dedicated toward helping to supplement the cost of or offset the cost of education for single mothers who are trying to better themselves and put themselves through technical programs.
Okay.
So we set them up and give them grants so that they don't have to worry about the high cost of childcare, which
right.
in this state is really outrageous. So I'm really proud about my participation in that group and what we've done. And I'm also, in the Harvard Club of Georgia,
okay.
the Harvard Varsity Club, and then I'm a fellow with the American Bar Association.
Okay, nice. I actually just joined a organization. I live in D.C., so joined an organization yesterday called Build D.C. They give back to high school students, youth.
That's awesome.
So teaching entrepreneurship. So you go in the classroom once a week. These schools are, underprivileged, whatnot, but great organization. Just it's good to give back. Mm-hmm. I'll say. So
that's what it's all about.
It is.
Right?
It is.
We get these blessings. We got to share them.
Exactly. So went to Harvard. Also went to Washington University. So tell me a little bit about your early career.
Sure. I graduated from Harvard. And originally, my goal was to go to medical school.
Okay.
And
mine too.
Yeah, that didn't really work out.
Right.
But that's okay because I wasn't meant to do that. I made the decision to go to law school my junior year of college, and so I did that. And I made that decision specifically with the intention of going into commercial real estate.
Okay.
And I wanted to become a developer. And it just so happened this is right before. Was a few years before the market burst.
Okay.
So I was in law school. Things were going well. I had my eyes set toward a career in commercial real estate. I took property, real estate transactions, commercial real estate, and land use as courses. And then the bubble burst and the market crash, or the economy crashed.
Of course.
So what that meant, aside from the harm that did to, unfortunately, a lot of homeowners, and particularly black homeowners, in our country. For me personally, what that meant is I kind of had to reset and figure out, how I was going to get to my end goal,
right.
Because no one in commercial real estate was hiring,
right.
Whether we're talking law firms, brokerage firms, whatever. And so, for a few years, I accepted a position to start at a firm as a commercial litigator.
Mm-hmm.
This is in St. Louis, and that just wasn't me.
Right.
And I knew I was straying farther and farther away from what I wanted to do.
Right.
And by the grace of God, I ended up getting an opportunity to jump into real estate by joining a boutique law firm in Houston.
Okay.
So I went back home, and things were going really well there. And then, I reconnected with my now wife, and we went to college together. And that was the impetus for me to come back to Atlanta.
Okay.
So I look at that as my early career, mainly because, you're always learning, right? Hopefully,
of course,
at every stage of your life.
Once we stop learning, that means we're pretty much ready to go on home.
But that was the challenge. That was when I faced the challenge of figuring out and then coming to grips and really dedicating myself toward what I wanted to do.
Right.
Everything that happened from that point on, I was already committed.
Right. So, your early career, you worked for a corporation. Tell me, because you've got several companies right now. Tell me what made you take that leap. Because there's some listeners out there that are still on the fence, that want to take a leap and start their own businesses, or they have their own businesses and they're just kind of stagnant. So tell me what made you take that leap.
Well, a lot of us tend to say things like be your own boss.
Right.
And, we say we believe in that concept.
Sure.
And some of us have the blessing of, having a mother or father, a relative, or a friend who has done that before them,
right,
and can kind of lead the example. Or they could just kind of come up in that culture where everybody's an entrepreneur or the head of their own company. It wasn't really like that for me. I always said, okay, the idea of being your own boss is great,
mm-hmm,
but I didn't think that was going to come as quickly as it did.
Right.
And it was my experience working for these large firms on the law side and on the brokerage side that made me really realize how those services are needed in our community.
Right.
So my decision to go out on my own really came about in connection with my experiences at these places. So I'll give you one example without saying any names, but I was working for a national commercial brokerage firm, and the regional headquarters is here in Atlanta.
Okay.
I was the only black broker at that firm. Okay, and this is the regional headquarters.
Okay.
And I was on a team, and we had our clients, and then we had prospective clients, and we had a series of deals and meetings and things like that. And maybe a year or so into my time there, I realized, we don't have any black clients, and there are a lot of reasons for that.
Right.
Particularly, that part of the industry, we were catering toward the large user. So, what that meant is these are large tenants that are paying, very high prices for, high quality real estate,
right,
in Midtown and other places, Buckhead. And like I said, there were no black clients, and of course I'm the only black broker, and I had a few meetings with people, and anyway, long story short, I quickly realized that there was no reason for these firms to hire people like me if their clients didn't look like me.
Right.
Because commercial real estate is there's a lot of nepotism involved in it, and,
right,
and it's a lot of industries are who you know, but this one is in particular is like extremely who
right,
you know. So if you don't go to the same country club, you didn't go to the same fraternity, you didn't go to the same college, you don't have those shared experiences, it's going to be hard for you to make certain connections, particularly if you're working for those large firms.
Right.
So that's when I decided, along with an experience I had when I first moved to Atlanta and tried to connect with black commercial real estate professionals and found it very difficult to even find them. That's when I decided to try to create a platform that would help ameliorate that.
Right.
And
which is the Institute, right?
Yeah, and
okay,
that's the Hughes Institute. And originally it just kind of started off, and let me can I explain what that is?
Yeah. And actually I want to go back just a little bit, because you mentioned blacks getting into real estate or even commercial real estate. So we've got a lot of listeners who are probably in residential or they're investors. What steps should they take to even get into it? Like it looks like this big wall to me, or it's a hurdle that I don't know if I want to even try to climb. So how do you even get into it? What are the steps if I'm interested? Is there some type of financing or explain that to me?
I understand. I think that everything comes down first to education.
Okay.
Right? Because you can be handed an opportunity, and shy of a big rainmaker or power player handpicking you and deciding you're just a project,
Sure.
and that they're going to pay you handsomely while you are a project, which happens, but it's rare. You need to make yourself qualified, and
Okay.
you need to come ready to contribute and ready to go out and make deals happen.
Right. I don't need to ask the question, is commercial real estate lucrative? It's more lucrative than residential.
Yeah, I mean, it
Right.
generally speaking, yes.
Right.
An average size house in Atlanta may be somewhere in the range of, $300,000. Let's just say something like that. You
Right.
know? And when I say average, I don't mean that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
So
what you mean.
we're taking everything into account. And if you sell your home after 10 years, let's say the economy's going great, there haven't been any crashes or anything like that, you can get a decent return on that, and you may walk away with a $75,000 capital gain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, average Class A office building in Atlanta is obviously going to cost or be worth more than $300,000. But depending on the developments that happen around it and other factors, you could end up selling that building for twice what you bought it for, even if you didn't get it, on foreclosure or something like that.
Right.
And you walk away with millions, right?
Exactly.
So yes, it's very lucrative. I mean, commercial real estate is a tens of trillions of dollar industry globally.
Okay.
And that was also part of my motivation for trying to get involved and spread the word and do my part to help bring people in our community into it.
Right.
Is because, we do a lot of talking about building wealth.
Right.
Right. And that's great. But it just seems kind of crazy to me that you have an industry that is so big and so critical. I mean, right now we're sitting in a studio that's inside of a building, and the people here, the tenants paying rent, and that landlord is collecting rent
Right.
checks every month. And if that landlord owns multiple properties, they're making a substantial amount of money. And I haven't looked into who the landlord is, who in terms of their background and all that, but that's an opportunity for us to get in if we can. Once we
Right.
have the education, and once we've connected to each other and trust each other, that's where we can make a large play.
Right.
And really truly build wealth, the kind of wealth that's going to impact us generationally.
Nice. So another question I have, if I'm out, I'm looking for commercial. I'm used to pretty much looking for residential. What am I looking for? If I'm looking for a good commercial building, it's producing. Of course, I need to do my homework. But what areas are trending? What else?
Yeah. So it depends on where you are. I know this is an Atlanta radio show, so we'll just keep it to Atlanta.
Well, we're on iHeart, so.
Okay. We're based in Atlanta, but you guys go all over. It really depends first on where you've done your research.
Okay.
And where you're most comfortable. Everything in life comes down to being prepared.
Sure.
Right. So, you could buy a self-storage space and end up making a nice return on your investment. You might not even be interested in that kind of thing. You could go multifamily, and that's, anything 5 or more units, or residential units, that's considered multifamily, and that's a part of commercial real estate by most definitions. I don't do multifamily. I do, office, some industrial,
Okay.
and retail.
Okay.
But my main focus is on office because since I was a little kid, my eyes have always been set upward. And I
Right.
look at those skyscrapers, and I'm like, I want us to get involved
Right.
in owning those
Right.
skyscrapers. You know what I mean?
Now, do you mind me asking, how many properties do you own, commercial properties?
Well, so our firm, we don't personally own
Okay.
anything. We don't handle money. Like we aren't a fund, and maybe that's something that I'll get to, down the road. But so when I say my firm, I'm talking about Hughes Investment Partners. I guess I probably should have started with
Sure.
the name.
It's all right.
So my brokerage firm is called Hughes Investment Partners. We specialize in leasing for office, industrial, and retail, and acquisitions and dispositions, and that's purchase and sale. And my law firm is Hughes Real Estate Law LLC.
Okay.
So, but on the brokerage side, we are brokers, and therefore we help clients who already have the capital or who think they can get the capital, and who are looking to either invest for the first time, or let's say they already have properties and they're looking to maybe do a 1031 tax exchange, or maybe just add to their portfolio without doing any kind of sale first. And we can help them acquire properties, or if they're a tenant, then of course we can renegotiate their lease, or get them a new direct lease, or work out a sublease, whatever the case may be. I mean, that's my area of expertise. I have many years of doing it, and like I said, I'm also a lawyer. So yeah, I mean, to go back to your question about personally owning things, my wife and I are looking at properties all over the place. She's originally from the Bronx, and right now the Bronx is trying to hold on tight. There's a lot of gentrification happening up there. Right. I know within the next 10 years, the Bronx in a lot of areas is going to look like Brooklyn does.
I was going to say they're doing the same thing in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I mean, DC, of course, as well.
Right. So we're trying to do our part and be smart as investors. Obviously, we want to make a return, but the idea is that we would, because our eyes aren't set on residential, we're going to approach it in a way that isn't going to tear up the community.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Okay.
We're going to be talking to Mr. Travis Hughes about commercial real estate.
Have you been injured in an automobile, motorcycle, or truck accident? Then you may need the services of personal injury lawyer Kwame Thompson. Kwame Thompson and his professional staff are ready to handle your claim with the dedicated resources to secure the maximum compensation. Call Kwame Thompson at 404-994-5948 or visit them at 235 Peachtree Street, Suite 400. You can also visit them online at kwamethompson.com. Have you been looking for a radio station that gives you sports?
I don't believe it! It's a touchdown!
Entertainment?
Are you not entertained?
And other special interest talk shows?
Well, isn't that special?
All on one app?
Yo, that's dope. What app is that?
It's the real 1100 AM app for WWE. Grab it for free in your Google Play or Apple App Store today.
Listen to the 9 to 5 Solution with your host Terrell Danzy, and I've got in the studio here with me Mr. Travis Hughes, commercial real estate mogul here in Atlanta. So, Mr. Hughes, took a look at your website, the Institute. Tell me a little bit about the Institute, because we've got some listeners out here that are curious.
Yeah, and this goes to your question about people who want to find out more about commercial real estate and potentially get involved. Right now, there really isn't any resource that we could turn to, that specifically focuses on our community and can provide that education, what I consider to be a very well-rounded education, along with exposure to different people in the industry. And so I started planning for this back in 2016.
Okay.
And I like to say to my friends and anybody I come across who's like, wow, you're doing a lot. Everything you're seeing right now is at least 2 to 3 years old. Okay. Right? No matter what I'm doing, because, all this stuff takes advanced planning. Right. In the case of the Institute, there are state approvals and all kind of things, procedural things that are coming into play. But so it started in 2016, and originally the vision was to create a school. Okay. And offer state-approved courses. So this is not, I don't know, the course game is really strong right now on the internet.
Right. And let me ask you this: before you can even be commercial real estate, you got to take the courses to be residential. Is that correct with the state of Georgia?
Actually, no, and that's a common misunderstanding. Okay. There is no designation between commercial and residential. Okay. It's strictly. If you could be a residential worker and somebody could say to you, hey, will you sell this building for me? And you could say, sure, provided, in accordance with law, right? You know what you're doing and you do your client a service, you can do that. Okay. There's no distinction there. But the thing is, commercial and residential are such distinct subsets of the same industry that it's going to be tough. Not impossible, but tough for you to come across a residential broker who truly knows what he or she is doing on the commercial side. And maybe vice versa, because frankly, if you came to me with a very narrow question about something residential, I might not be able to answer it because
Right.
I don't play in that field.
Okay. So let's jump back to the Institute. Now, you've got courses on the Institute. You've also, I was very impressed. I've seen the news ticker. You've got articles. You're also a podcast host yourself. So talk about your podcast, talk about the information that you are dedicated at putting out and giving to the community.
Yeah. So, like I said, it originally started with the idea of creating state-approved courses.
Sure.
And then it just kind of expanded from there. And so now we have, if you go to the website, and you can get there, www.hughes-institute.com, or you can go www.hughesinstituteofrealestate.com. The latter is a mouthful, and so that's why I created hughes-institute.com in order to reroute you there. But anyway, so you go to the main page, you're going to see a number of things. We have those state-approved courses, so people who desire a salesperson license, and that's what we think of as an agent's license. It's called salesperson's license here in Georgia. Or if they already have one and they need continuing education or post-licensing credit, you can take courses through our site, and they're totally state approved. There's no scam associated with these courses at all. Okay,
Right.
This has all been approved. I've had to go through a lot of hoops in order to get this done. Similarly, we have our own courses we've created.
Okay.
And that's me trying to give back to our community and do more than just provide state-approved courses. So let's say you aren't a broker, let's say, I want to learn more about commercial real estate, and I don't need a license necessarily. Let's say I'm an investor, or let's say I'm a business owner, and I have a lease expiration date coming up. You know what I mean? And I want to make sure I understand this stuff before I go get my lawyer, because I won't be able to evaluate the job my lawyer's doing if I don't understand it, right? Well, we've created courses for that, and I think these courses are very affordable given the subject matter. But we have typical, or an example, commercial office lease course. We have a commercial retail lease course.
Okay.
We have a property management and leasing agreement course. And then we have purchase and sale agreement. And so what we do is walk you through, in a pretty detailed fashion, all the clauses of an example, either lease or purchase and sale agreement or something like that. And in addition to that, we have a glossary. So, you might see some words in there you don't understand. Tons of definitions. We got all that stuff. Now, you mentioned the podcast. I wanted to expose people in our community to people who are in commercial real estate, who are black, who are doing great things.
Right.
And so I have a podcast called Building Giants. Really happy about that. It's going well so far. And I just secured a woman who was a senior vice president at a fund, a national fund. It's based in D.C.
Okay.
And I'm getting ready to interview her. So I can't say
I'll
the
be
name,
listening.
I can't say the fund. But it's not a black-owned fund, but she is a black woman who's, extremely high, in the fund. And they have many, many millions of dollars and tons of transactions. And they have a track record of doing things. They aren't starting up. This isn't a startup fund. So I'm excited to have her on. But, so we have the podcast. We have breaking news. Those news stories orient around either majority black or cities that have a significant black population, like Baltimore.
Okay. I've seen some of the articles. You had something going on in
Atlanta,
Yeah,
Baltimore,
exactly.
Maybe Detroit, L.A.
L.A. was on there.
Yeah, L.A., New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your ticker, which was actually interesting. Now, are you doing anything with the Florence? I think you had on there. There were $33.5 billion in.
No.
In damages.
Yeah, no. So I think what you saw was the news ticker. So it's kind of like if you turn on CNN or ESPN, you'll see the news ticker at the bottom or the top or whatever, and that's in addition to the actual news stories.
Okay.
So the news ticker is just headlines, basically, and that particular story was just stating that there was something like, I forget the exact number. I'm not looking at it, but there's a lot of commercial real estate along the coastline of North and South Carolina that was in the way of Hurricane Florence.
Okay. Okay.
And so it was just setting forth a projection of how much damage there could be.
And that was crazy.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners from some of your mistakes and failures, how have they developed you as a business owner and as a person as well?
Making mistakes is everything.
Right.
That's how you learn.
And I think sometimes we look at failures as bad things, and we look at society teaches us that if you fail or you make a mistake, then it's it. So it's my goal to tell and enlighten people, like, take those past mistakes and just build upon them, perfect them. So have you had any significant challenges that have just launched you forward?
Oh, yeah. I've had tons of them. I mean, in that early career phase you were talking about, there were a number of challenges. And then, just getting to the point where I am now, and I'm by no means, but by God's grace, I'm no means done. This is just the beginning.
Of course.
But what I'm doing is tough. And there's a reason why you aren't going to find many people who are doing this or attempting it. Because all this stuff, they all have their own hurdles. Like, I'm licensed in multiple states in law.
Right.
And then, I got my salesperson's license, and I have my broker's license. And that required passing 2 separate exams.
Right.
And, this website, I had a developer for a while, and shout out to her. Our vision didn't quite match up all the time. So I actually had to finish the site myself.
Oh, wow.
So I had to teach myself a lot of these things. This wasn't just like your standard Wix kind of website,
Right.
So I got in there and had to really teach myself all these things. And so these were obstacles. And then it's going about the business of scaling.
Right.
That's a challenge. But I welcome all these things, you know what I mean? And I know along the way there are going to be some bumps and some mistakes. And, particularly when it comes to selling courses, I might get a review every now and then where somebody is unhappy with something for whatever reason. I'm ready for all those things because it happens to everybody who succeeds, But anybody who's listening to this, you don't know me personally, but I can tell you my heart is as pure as it gets, and I'm really not doing this. Like I said, it's some sort of scam. And it should be obvious, I have multiple means of making income and so, everything that I'm doing, I'm not looking at it like, okay, well, I have to get this one deal or I got to make this one sale or else, my whole life is going to fall apart. And so you should be able to trust in me. Right.
So we're wrapping up here. Tell me, you've got all of these companies. You stay busy. Next steps are ultimate goal.
Yeah.
I know you've got something on the table now that you're creating again.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, I'm always 2-3 years out. I have my own personal goals. I think, my goals as they relate to us collectively, I just want to do my part in helping to introduce more people to this industry. And I want to serve those business owners out there who need representation with their leases or looking to maybe acquire property.
That's great.
I want to help people. I just want to share the information I have because that's we always talk about it, but not everybody does it, and I appreciate people like you for having this show and exposing people.
I appreciate you coming on and all that you're doing.
This is the whole point of everything you're doing.
Exactly.
Too, so we're very like-minded in that sense. And so I just, the next couple of years, I really hope that we can get more players in commercial real estate and that we can work together. And I understand that you're going to have a little bit of competition or a lot of competition. That's fine. That's healthy.
Right.
But it all needs to be geared toward making us all better and, stimulating our pockets.
Right. So where can we find you, Mr. Hughes?
Sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at Travis D. Hughes. You can follow me on Instagram, the same thing. Of course, my websites, like I said, there's hughes-institute.com. There's also hughesinvestmentpartners.com and then hughesrealestatelaw.com. So that's probably the best way to find me, and I'm available.
All right. We appreciate you coming on the show. We appreciate all that you're doing in the community as well. You've been listening to the 9 to 5 Solution with Terrell Danzy.
Thank you for tuning in to the 9 to 5 Solution, encouraging listeners to think differently on purpose. The 9 to 5 Solution airs every Thursday at 1 p.m. on WWE The Real 1100 AM.
Thank you for listening to another Old Fashioned Health Network show on The Real 1100.